Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be speaking about my addiction issues with drugs and alcohol. This isn't something that I've, again, talked about very often. It's just like a lot of the things I talk about on this channel, actually. I find it a little bit like healing to be able to share my story with other people. Maybe other people can relate to me. So that's why I make these videos. I'm still kind of deciding what direction I want this channel to go in. I don't think I want it to be strictly a weight loss channel. I think, for me personally, I think just sharing different experiences like addiction, eating disorders, mental illness, stuff like that is important to me, and I don't want to come at it from a medical standpoint. I just want to be able to speak about my own experiences, how I got there, how I've, improved over the years. So that's why I make these videos, and hopefully maybe it inspires someone to get better, maybe it makes someone realize that maybe they have a problem and they didn't realize it before. So that's really why I make these videos. So I just want to get into a little bit of the backstory of even how I even got into starting to drink and take drugs. So I would say from a pretty young age, I was given beer from my parents, grandparents. It wasn't really a big deal. So from a pretty young age, I would say about the age of 6, I already knew what alcohol tasted like, and I already liked it. So that's not good. But yeah, like during high school, like it was nothing to drink in my home. Like my parents were okay with it. If we were going out to like a concert or something, like my parents would give me beer to drink beforehand. Like just alcohol was such a part of my life for so long. So yeah, that's how I really got into drinking, was just my parents giving it to me when I wanted it. So I developed a pretty terrible relationship with it, to be honest, right off the bat. I would say once I started working, so about the age of 16, I had some disposable income, so it was nothing for me to give money to my dad to go buy me booze, and he would, and I would have bottles of booze in my closet at like 16. Like, or I would be at work and I would think, oh, I can't wait to go home and have a drink. Like, and I was like 16, 17, thinking like this, like, oh, a day at work, I need to drink. I need to, cope with my feelings somehow, right? So yeah, I just had a really terrible relationship with it right off the bat. It just wasn't healthy. So I would say once my parents divorced, or I guess split up, I went from having not a normal life at all, and that's a totally separate other video, but I went from having no freedom in my life whatsoever to having no parental supervision at all. So you can imagine, you're working, you have disposable income, you're starting to party. Yeah, I mean, obviously drugs started becoming a problem. Started smoking weed in grade 12. In high school, I was the smart kid. Like I did well in school. So in grade 12, when I got busted with drugs, of course I got reamed out by the VP saying, what's a kid like you doing in my office? And that was just the beginning of the end for me, honestly. Things just got worse from there. I didn't know how to cope with my parents not being around, not having structure as I knew it, so I was just trying to create my own structure. I was working 30 hours a week as a grade 12 student. I was getting, I was on the honor roll. I was starting the party. So I had a lot on my plate at that time, and dealing with my parents' divorce emotionally just wasn't part of what I wanted to do, right? So it wasn't until I started drinking and getting drunk, then those feelings would come out, right? And that's always when those feelings come out, though, is when I was drinking, right? I never wanted to feel things ever. Even to this day, I'm still uncomfortable feeling feelings. Like, it's just not something that I'm used to. I'm used to always having something to push down the feelings, whether it's food, which you would, if you watched my other video on binge eating, that was something I did. I Again, I drank, I smoked. I started smoking cigarettes when I was 17. I knew from a very, very young age that I was going to be a smoker. I loved the smell of cigarette smoke. I thought it looked so cool. I had family members that did it, and I was like, yeah, as soon as I can buy cigarettes, I'm going to do it. And I did. So, I mean, I was smoking, I was smoking weed and smoking cigarettes. I was drinking a lot. It was nothing for me. Grade 12, before I went to school, let's have a screwdriver for breakfast, right? Like, let's have some orange juice and vodka. In grade 12, like, this is how I coped with the day. It's insane to think back to those times. That's how I was living. It's just crazy. But that's kind of the backstory, right? I was in a place in my life where there were a lot of big changes. I didn't know how to handle it. Plus, I mean, you give a teenager freedom that they've never had. Of course, they're probably going to make some mistakes. They're going to make some bad choices. And I did. Absolutely, I did that. And not only that, but throughout the course of my life, I never really had a lot of friends. And again, totally separate video. I'm sure I'll talk about it someday, but I wasn't someone that had a lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of connections with people. So you can imagine going from having no friends to all of a sudden you're partying and you're hanging out with people and you're getting kind of like that normal grade 12 experience, so to speak. Like, that was the first time I'd ever experienced a lot of that stuff. So yeah, I definitely didn't deal with it in the most positive way. So continuing on from grade 12, I was living with my dad, and in order for me to live with him, he wanted me to go to post-secondary school right after high school. He said, if you're going to live in my house, you're going to school. And I knew at that time that, like, that just wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to do that. I wasn't ready. But he really didn't care. So I ended up starting university in the fall of 2008. And I ended up dropping out of university about a month and a half into it. My drug use and my drinking were just so out of control that, like, school was the last thing on my mind. And I'll kind of like backtrack a little bit. Before I started university in the fall, that summer, I had met some new, we'll call them friends. At that time, they were friends, and yeah, we started using hard drugs. So, I mean, I was doing like the party drugs, right? Ecstasy, cocaine, that type of stuff. I never did anything worse than that, but yeah, like, I was drinking every day to the point where, like, I didn't remember what was happening. I was doing hard drugs. Like, life was crazy. Like, I just can't even explain it. Like, my life was out of control in all the wrong ways. Like, I didn't even recognize my life because of all of the drinking, all of the drugs, all of these people that were in my life that weren't good for me. My parents were, like, nowhere to be seen. Like, I was raising myself, it felt like. So I just didn't have a lot of support at that time, and I think that's, my friends were my family at that point. So, I mean, we kind of just did everything together. So, but as you can imagine, when you've got prolonged use of drinking, drugs, I ended up getting substance-induced depression, and it definitely made me suicidal. It definitely, it got to a really unhealthy, unsafe place when I was drinking. It would likely get to the point where I would be like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, commit suicide, or I'm gonna think about it. And there was one night in particular, I had just started university, and I was feeling particularly not well mentally. So I went with my friends and I checked myself actually into like a youth detox center. So they said, you know what, come back in half an hour, go get your stuff, and you know we'll admit you. So that's exactly what I did. I went home, I grabbed all my stuff, I went to youth detox for a week, and really there it's just a chance for you to be away from drugs, be away from alcohol. You kind of get to do some counseling, you get to be with other youth that are your age, kind of going through the same things. You get to do activities, like they really kind of try to give you coping skills as to like how to deal with your addiction. So I was there for a week. It was a good experience, and it wasn't long until I was back there, to be honest. So what happened was I left youth detox, and then of course I went back to my old ways of drinking, doing drugs, because quite honestly nothing had changed. My group of people that I was hanging out with were the same. You know, we did everything the same. I didn't really try to change anything in that time, so it makes sense that no progress would have been made on my end. But there was one night in particular, I'm gonna say December. I just remember being at the bar. I remember having some sort of fallout with someone. I don't remember who. But I was just out at the bar with my cousins, friends. We were partying like we always did. And I remember going home. I don't know what set me off, but I remember taking a close to an entire bottle of my antidepressants. Luckily, I had plans to hang out with my friend. He picked me up. He took me to the hospital because I had told him what I had done, so he dropped me off at the hospital. And yeah, I was in the hospital for attempted suicide, and I was given the option at that point to go to the psych ward. I was already seeing a psychiatrist and an addictions counselor and a family counselor and a nutritionist. Like, I had a bunch of people trying to keep me alive, and it was tough. It was really, really tough, and I had to choose between going to the psych ward or going to rehab. Those were my only two choices, because I had tried to harm myself. They said, yeah, you need help, one or the other. So I chose to go to treatment because I figured that was probably more what I needed. I had more issues I felt with drinking. I felt if I could get that under control, then, you know, maybe I could get everything else under control. So that's what I did. I went to treatment for 5 weeks, and it was a really good experience. It was a really good experience. Obviously, you're there with people who don't want to be there, people who are court ordered to be there. For whatever reason, they're there. But yeah, it's a good experience. You just get to relate to other people like yourself. You know, it's people you wouldn't even think of. Like, I was in rehab with, you know, the average looking mom. I was in, you know, rehab with dads that looked completely normal. Like, it's just such a different place than what you think it is. And but no, it was a really good experience. For 5 weeks, it's just, you know, counseling and going to AA meetings and NA meetings and trying to, you know, have some one-on-one counseling, group counseling, just trying to recreate a life that is structured and healthy, and it really helped me. I mean, I've never been back to treatment from the age of 18, so I mean, it has helped me tremendously. It's given me the skills that I need to thrive and to live with an addiction that that isn't easy. And I mean, no addiction is easy. I have a very addictive personality, and there's a lot of things I know I can't do because I know there's a good chance I'll get addicted to it. I mean, gambling is something I don't really do. Um, yeah, I mean, shopping is something I really try not to do too much of because, yeah, I can see how people would get addicted to that. So I really do have to be careful with myself for sure. Um, so the takeaway from this video is really, I guess, addiction doesn't look one way, right? I mean, when people meet me in real life and they've known me for some time and they find out that I have addiction issues, I would say I was more of an alcoholic than a drug addict, but still, I mean, I used both. I would definitely say I have more issues with alcohol. It's definitely my preference, and it's the one thing that I am really, really careful about because I know how much damage it can cause. So that one kind of scares me a little bit sometimes. But the takeaway from this video, hopefully, is that addiction, I mean, it can start off really innocent, like, oh, having a few beers as a kid, but like, I mean, it can steadily progress if you let it, right? So what seemed innocent, long ago is not so innocent for me anymore, right? Like, I can look back at my life and see, okay, yeah, that makes sense how that might have happened. So, and the other thing is that, I mean, you really never know what someone's going through. I don't really think that I look like the type of person that people would assume is dealing with that kind of stuff. And like, I've been told that so many times. Excuse me. Most people say like, oh, you don't look like the type of person that would have ever had those issues. But I guess that's kind of the point of this video, is that you never know who is dealing with what, right? People are dealing with a lot right now, especially right now, and I know things are harder than ever. So I think really the point of this is just be kind to people. People are going through a lot, maybe even yourself, and I just think that it's important to share our stories, and maybe someone can relate to it, be inspired by it, see a little bit of themselves in it, whatever it might be, I don't ever want to come at this from a point of like medical advice or telling you what to do. I just want to share my story. That's really all I can do. So in terms of, I guess, how I live now with addiction is, I know there's certain things that I can't do, I'll never be able to do, which is like having alcohol in my house. That's just not something I like to do. I know that I can't do it. It's just too easy, it's too accessible for me, so that's something that I usually I just don't have it in my house. Also, I don't drink if I'm upset. If I'm in a bad mood, I know that drinking is just not going to be the answer for me. So, and of course you're probably wondering, what, you're an alcoholic but you drink? So basically how I choose to live, there might be people out there that disagree with this. This is just what I do. Back when my drinking was at its worst, I definitely did have substance-induced depression. I was drinking all of the time. My mind was always in an altered state. Putting together just like a simple sentence was difficult for me at times. And I'm just trying to paint the picture of like how bad it was for me. But over time of, learning myself and lessening the amount of alcohol that I have, and kind of keeping it more for like when I go out or maybe when I go on vacation, kind of limiting myself and giving myself strict guidelines, that to me works for me. I'm totally okay with knowing that I can't have it in my house, I can't drink when I'm upset, but it's okay for me to drink on vacation or when I go out for dinner. That's okay, right? So I know my limits, I know what I can handle, what I can't. So, I mean, that just comes with age, I think, too. Do I still go to AA meetings? No, I don't. I haven't for a long, long time. When I was first in rehab, yeah, I went all the time, like every day. Sometimes I'd go to 2 a day. I just felt like it was what I needed at that time. I needed that support of people who were going through what I was going through. I didn't have a lot of support at home. My dad was drinking. My mom didn't live with us anymore. My friends were in the same boat as I was. They were drinking, doing drugs. Um, so I really didn't have a lot of places to go in that regard. So AA was really a lifesaver for me at that time. But no, I don't feel like I need it right now. I know there's been times in my life, like I think there was a time in my early 20s where I was feeling some stuff, I was going through some things, and I thought, okay, maybe I should go to a meeting just to like calm myself down, um, you know, just recenter myself a little bit. I could tell that I was kind of going in a negative direction, so I went to a meeting. And that's the great thing about those meetings, is that they're always there. Now, during COVID, I don't know how AA and NA meetings are working. Um, I'm sure they are still happening in some capacity. They're very needed. Um, so that for me is definitely like a comforting factor, knowing that those meetings are there. I haven't gone to a meeting in probably 8 years. I feel like I've done pretty well. I don't really look at it as like oh, I've worked the 12 steps, I've done all of that. I really never did work those steps. For me, it was more just being able to hear other people's stories or talk about my own. That to me was the most important takeaway from AA. But yeah, I mean, if you're struggling with addiction issues or you think you might be struggling, I mean, there's tons of resources out there, AA, NA. There's definitely a lot of counseling out there. There's hotlines. There's tons of resources out there for people with addictions issues, suicide, ideation, that kind of stuff. There's tons of help out there. So again, I guess that's kind of an important factor of this video too. It's just reiterating that there is help out there. Help comes in all different forms. And your road to recovery might not look like mine. It might not look like the guy down the street, and it doesn't matter. In my personal opinion, recovery is very personal, and it's going to be very different depending on everyone. I mean, the severity of my issues will vary from someone else's. So, yeah, there's probably people watching this video that think, oh, well, you shouldn't be drinking at all. And I'm not disagreeing, but I also feel like I have enough of a handle on myself, enough of an understanding. I'm in a much, much, much healthier place in my life. And to me, I can honestly say that I don't personally have issues with drinking right now. If for some reason I ever felt like things were moving in the wrong direction, yeah, I would absolutely go to an AA meeting or reach out to counseling. I know what it's like to live with addiction and how much it interrupts and interferes your life, your family's life. I totally get it. So I really just want to just make a point of saying that you're not alone. There are people out there that are going through what you're going through. There's just like, especially in the age of like social media, technology, I'm sure there's tons and tons of forums and chats and tons of stuff out there for people who are going through this. So there's no shame in admitting that you might have a problem or that something is out of your control. Life is so much better when you just face your problems. I mean, I've had to deal with eating disorders, I've had to deal with mental illness, addiction, so many things in my life. And I guess what I mean by, be a better you is just taking note of your life and saying, okay, what can I do better? How can I live more authentically? how can I be more true to who I am? And that's really what I'm here to do with this channel. Is it's just as much for me as it is for you. I want to be able to share my stories with people and hopefully inspire someone, help someone, you know, so that's why I make these videos. It's not easy to sit here and talk about things that I've never even talked about with some of my friends. So it is a challenging experience, but it's also a very healing. So that's why I do it, and I enjoy doing it, and I have no problem sharing my story. So please subscribe to my channel. I try to make about 2 videos a week. I'm trying to still figure out the structure of this channel and what I think I'm going to do with it. I really want it to kind of be more of an overall wellness channel, not just weight loss. I think there's a ton of channels out there that are like that, weight loss, fitness, whatever. But for me, I'm thinking I want to go kind of in all forms of health, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever it might be. So if you have any comments or you have any video ideas, questions, or anything, please leave those down below. Also, I do have an Instagram. You can follow me at, it's behind there, Keeping It Real with Katie with 2 E's, so Katie Elizabeth, that's why. But until next time, see you guys